Cecilia Feelhoy was a hopeless romantic, and it seemed like she had been looking for her Prince Charming her whole life. She found herself aimlessly scrolling through Tinder, always hoping to find the one. As a UX designer, Cecilia had a good eye for design and wanted to apply that to finding the perfect partner. Unfortunately, she found herself still searching, but she wasn't giving up hope. One day, she was sure her prince would come. After living in London for a few years, Cecilia discovered Simon Leviev's profile on Tinder. He was an attractive Israeli man who presented himself to the world as a Russian-Israeli diamond tycoon. Cecilia was immediately smitten, and the two began talking. In January 2018, Simon took Cecilia on an unforgettable romantic experience. He whisked her away on a private plane from London to Bulgaria overnight. The two enjoyed a romantic dinner and a stroll around the beautiful city. Cecilia was captivated by the experience, and from that day on, she knew that Simon was the one. Or so she thought. After Simon had been taking Cecilia out on dates for a while, she felt more and more sure that she was the one for him. On one of their dates, he decided to make it official and asked Cecilia to be his girlfriend. He looked into her eyes and told her with a smile that he wanted her to be his future wife. Cecilia was overcome with emotion and said yes. Since Simon traveled extensively, his relationship with her remained a long distance for the most part, and they communicated mostly through text messages and phone calls. Simon was determined to convince Cecilia that the diamond industry was dangerous, and he had many enemies. To prove his point, he even showed her pictures of the bullets he had supposedly received in the mail and a photograph of his bodyguard after an assailant brutally beat him. Having concerns that his enemies could track him through his credit cards, Simon asked Cecilia if she would let him use her American Express cards for a couple of weeks. She smiled and said, "I'm his girlfriend. Of course we're going to help each other. It wasn't even a question." Cecilia was sure Simon would pay her back, so she was willing to help him financially. Cecilia ended up lending Simon a considerable amount, nearly $100,000. She had faith in her boyfriend and was willing to take a financial risk to support him. Simon began to ask Cecilia for more money as time went by. At first, he asked her to fund small expenses such as business lunches and some of his team's travel expenses. As their relationship progressed, his requests grew, and Cecilia felt increasingly obligated to fulfill them. Because of safety concerns, Simon lived in Sweden, but still asked Cecilia for money, a total of $250,000. Eventually, Simon sent Cecilia a check for $500,000, but it didn't clear at the bank. She was confused as to why her billionaire boyfriend's check bounced. Concerned that something wasn't right, she contacted American Express. To her surprise, they asked for a photo of Simon and told her the shocking news. American Express employees informed her that Simon was not what he claimed to be. They explained that Simon is a professional who does this for a living. "The man I loved was never real. He faked everything. It was horrible because, in a sense, I still loved him," Cecilia later explained. She had been living with her mother for a few weeks when the reality of her situation began to set in. The mounting debt caused by her ex-lover Simon had been weighing on her mind, and her depression had become too much to bear. She decided to take a drastic step back and check herself into the mental health ward of a hospital. Meanwhile, Simon was busy swindling even more women, including Pernilla Solholm. Pernilla graduated from college with a degree in tourism and hotel management and was quickly hired to work at various hotels and restaurants in Sweden. In 2018, while living in Sweden, Pernilla decided to try her luck on Tinder and swiped right when she saw Simon's profile. She thought she had found a great catch and was excited to see where things would go. When Pernilla and Simon started talking, they hit it off immediately and decided to meet up in person soon after. Wherever they went, they made sure to take full advantage of their time together, exploring new places and cultures across the globe. They had unforgettable trips to Amsterdam, Rome, and Mykonos, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells of each unique location. By the end of 2018, Simon found himself in a difficult situation and turned to Cornelia for help. He told her he was on the run from enemies and needed money to survive. Cornelia felt strongly loyal to Simon and sent him the funds he requested. She ended up lending him almost $45,000 out of concern for his safety. While Simon was swindling Cecilia and Cornelia, he also had a third victim, Eileen Charlotte. Eileen and Simon met on Tinder in late 2017. According to Eileen, she loved Simon dearly. She thought he was thoughtful and shared her whole heart with him. At times, Eileen and Simon discussed starting a family and settling down together. In her heart, Eileen felt she and Simon were soulmates. Eileen and Simon had memorable times in Prague on February 16, 2019. After exploring the city, they made their way to the airport to part ways. As they said their goodbyes, Eileen kept herself occupied by browsing her phone while she waited for her flight. When Eileen saw Simon's face on her feed, she couldn't believe her eyes. For a while, she had been considering spending the rest of her life with him. However, Eileen read about Cecilia and Cornelia, two women who the same man had conned. It horrified her to realize that the man she had been talking to this whole time was the same one who conned those two women. The situation devastated Eileen. She had been vulnerable and allowed her emotions to cloud her judgment. Her trust had been betrayed by someone who did not deserve it. Eileen had been scammed. Eileen confronted Simon about the article, and he vehemently denied its authenticity, claiming it was the work of his enemies to spread lies about him. He alleged that they had been paid by Cecilia and Cornelia to make the article more convincing. But despite Simon's claims, Eileen trusted the report. The stories Cecilia and Cornelia described in the article had too many similarities to what she was going through to be a coincidence. Even after Eileen had made it clear that she believed the report, Simon kept trying to persuade her to give him money. Although Eileen continued to speak with Simon, she refused to give him any more money because she was also in contact with the authorities. After letting law enforcement know where Simon would be heading, Interpol arrested him in Greece in 2019 for using a fake passport. Later that year, Simon was given a 15-month prison sentence in Israel, but was released after serving less than half due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Times of Israel reports that Simon had not learned his lesson about lying and presented himself as a medical worker to get the COVID-19 vaccine early in 2020. In 2022, Simon denied defrauding any women and said he was just a single guy looking to meet women on Tinder. Simon Leviev wasn't the son of a diamond mogul. His name was Simon Yehuda Hayat, and he was born in Benin Brak, Israel, just east of Tel Aviv. When Simon was in his 20s, he stole checkbooks from two families and cashed them. He reportedly babysat for the family he would defraud and posed as a handyman in another case. Simon then fled Israel rather than stand trial. After settling in Finland, his legal luck ran out. The Finnish court convicted him of defrauding 3 women and sentenced him to 2 years in prison in 2015. Following his release from prison, Simon was sent back to Israel in 2017, but authorities confirmed he fled again. According to Esquire, it has been reported that Simon Leviev enjoys living his best life in Israel, despite all of the negative press surrounding him. He has been banned from Tinder and all dating sites and apps owned by Match Group Incorporated, as reported by NBC, and he has been forced to delete his Instagram account, but he insisted he did nothing wrong. Cecilia, Cornelia, and Eileen had all been deceived by the same man, and were left with mounting debt and no way to recover from it. In an act of solidarity, the 3 women decided to come together and create a documentary about the scammer. They called it The Tinder Swindler. The Tinder Swindler is an inspiring story about 3 women rising against a powerful scammer and creating something positive out of their misfortune. They hope their story will encourage others to be more cautious when navigating the world of online dating. Online dating can be a great way to meet new people, but, unfortunately, there are swindlers out there who use the platform for their own malicious purposes. To stay safe online and avoid being scammed, it's important to be aware of the risks associated with Tinder. First, never share your personal or financial information with someone you don't know. If someone asks for this information, be suspicious and report them to the platform. Secondly, Don't agree to meet up with someone you've only interacted with online, especially if you don't know their true identity. Be wary of any requests for money or gifts, and make sure you can trust the person before engaging in any transaction.